Good morning. This is the Blaine's World webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you get more information, find out about past shows, future shows at my website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm a host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce two of my favorite theater folks and theater entrepreneurs, and they are Eric Martinez and Mark Jones. And guys, you can wave to all your friends and friends who are watching this. So that's Mark and Eric. And I'm really glad to have you guys on board because I've had the pleasure of seeing a whole bunch of stuff you've been in and directed and been involved in. But this, we're going to talk about something a little bit different, and it's a new theatrical venture, I guess, that you both are undertaking.
Yep.
And name of it is Dogged.
So it's called Dogged Utopia. So Dogged. Let me show a little picture.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, I have to ask you, how do you, I love it. Wait. So how do you get first of all, how do you get the name for this?
So basically, so as you saw my two dogs, this is Ripley and Griffin. So part of it was I wanted to kind of pay homage to my babies. So that was part of it. But also it's like Utopia, we love the theater. We love being in the theater, and that's kind of our happy place. But Dogged is kind of the point of which, we have to work really hard. It's not just the practice, the learning, the memorization. It's all the auditions, the rejections, all those things we go to get to that happy place. So it's that really dogged pursuit, that work, the sweat, the tears to get there. And so it's kind of that double entendre, double meaning there in the name Dogged Utopia.
Great name. But before we talk about that thing you're doing now, let's talk a little bit for the benefit of folks who don't know who you guys are. Again, Eric, I've seen you in a bunch of shows. I don't know how many, but how did you get involved in theater in the first place?
Yeah, so I like to tell the story. I was a little kid with a lot of energy, as an adult with a lot of energy. But my mom didn't know what to do with this boy with all this energy, so she put me in theater. And at 4 years old, I played the little elephant in the little play that called How Elephants Got Their Trunks. And so, honestly, I've been doing it ever since. Have kind of gone from plays to musicals, went into opera for a while, kind of left that and came back to musicals. And then did some film work. But yeah, I love the theater, and I love performing. I love the people that are involved. So it's just been a lifelong passion from 4 years old.
Now, that show that you did as a 4-year-old, do we have a record of that somewhere, or was that ever taped anywhere?
I'd have to ask my mom. I don't know. She did make me my big elephant head, and it had a slinky in it, so that when the elephant got their trunks, the slinky opened up, and I was that little baby elephant. And yeah, so it was fun.
I don't see it behind you, though. We don't have that head anywhere.
That's in the museum. No, I'm just kidding. It's probably in my mom's. My mom has kept every brochure, every program, every report card, everything. So it's probably somewhere in my mom's house.
Well, Mark's heard me make this offer in the past, but I'll make it to you, Eric. And I still have this idea, Mark. We haven't done it yet, but for this fundraiser, and maybe we can even do it as a fundraiser for Dogged Utopia. The idea being, Eric, can you imagine everybody recreates their very first role? So in terms of you don't have a record of that as a 4-year-old, but wouldn't your mom be thrilled to see this, that she revisits this? Tell me that wouldn't be a fun.
She would love it. It would be a way for me to get them to come more often. So yeah, I love that idea.
But tell me that wouldn't be a fun idea to have, that you have to, but it has to be the very first role you ever did, and
yeah.
And whether you remember it or not, or it's a long role, I just think that'd be a great thing to see you as a little 4-year-old in the very first
playing an elephant with no trunk. Yeah.
Okay. So after that, then you took off, and did you act, I guess, all the way through school and high school and thereafter?
I did. I did a lot of plays when I was in elementary school, middle school. In high school, I did more musicals, and then in college, I went off and did engineering. my parents basically said, you're going to do engineering. And so I did engineering, but I also studied music and acting. I basically, because I was taking a full course load, I could take courses for free in the theater school. So basically I would go run over there and take classes and then perform locally, in the community theaters around there. So I've always been doing this, no matter what I've been doing, even though my day job has kind of become more technical, more engineering focused. Still, my heart lies with theater, and this is what I love to do.
But I find this hard to believe. You mean that theater doesn't supply you enough income to live a life, the great life? I find that's hard to believe.
I wish. I will say one thing, just what I believe, and we're very competitive with the other theaters around. We try to pay everybody. For our first show, every single person is paid, even though it's no one's going to get rich, no one's going to be able to make a living on it. But it's a little something to show, hey, we respect your time, your talent, what you're providing and giving to the show, and so we really that's important to me, that everyone gets a little something
And
for their time.
I really give you guys a lot of credit for this. I don't know if I've discussed it with Mark, but it just bothers me that some theaters, for example, pay everybody but the actors, and we won't mention any names, Mark, but the I find it hard, especially hard that musicians get paid inevitably. You have musicians, every time a musician is there, they get paid, but the actors oftentimes don't, and so it'd be like the comeback to Mark, I would see that being that, well, why don't we just have, since musicals oftentimes now have the music as, or for a track, we could just have the actors mouth the words. You don't need actors anymore. You could just, same thing too. We could have a track for the show. But that's great. So you guys are planning to pay folks with Dogged, this new firm. And let me ask Mark the same question a little bit. You started acting when? Mark, when did you start acting?
Third grade. I mean, well, I've been acting for a while. I mean, since the third grade. My first show was I was a mouse. So
what was that play?
And then I was a Chew, the mouse that saved Christmas. So
Aww.
And then here I am, however many years later.
Well, so that'd
with
be
quite
great.
a few shows under my belt.
We could have you do the mouse with the elephant. It'd be a great combination. We can have both in the same scene. So, Mark, I know you also, not only as an actor, one of my favorite local actors, but you've also been doing a lot of directing as well. And the question I ask actors to become directors, do you have a preference, acting or directing?
The older I get, the more directing becomes a thing. It's just, as an older actor, there are fewer roles that I want to play or can play. So it just becomes a little different as you get, as you start to age in the acting world. But there are still some good roles out there. They're not happening as much as the younger roles are, which is fine because I do like directing, and in the last 20 years, I've directed 60 shows. So I have quite a few under my belt as a director. So I know that as I get older and keep getting older, I can continue to direct, and I don't have to memorize lines as much that way.
That's because inevitably, I ask people that question. I ask a lot of actors, and they'll oftentimes say directing, and that, they don't have to memorize the lines. And Eric, same thing too. I don't know. Have you done directing as well?
I've done some directing. So I will be directing. And we'll talk about a little bit this later, but a show next year that Mark and I are working on. I can't officially announce it because we don't have the rights yet, but it'll be my first directing experience here in Western North Carolina. I've directed elsewhere, so I'm excited about that. One thing about Dogged Utopia is I kind of want us to break the rules in a lot of ways. Partly is there's typical ways to do shows. Typical age groups, typical things. I'd like to break those things and try different things, like, hey, let's try an older cast. Why not? And so it gives more opportunities that say traditionally a role might be cast younger. Well, let's see if we can do it older. It's just a different experience. And so why not break the rules a little bit if the contract allows?
And my only disappointment in having you direct that play or Mark directing something is I so much like seeing you on stage performing, so when you're directing, I can't see you on stage as an actor. And so I have to deal with that in some way. And let's talk then about Dogged Productions. So
Yeah.
how do you come up with the, first of all, the idea for starting a theatrical company?
Yeah. And so, we, Mark and I have worked together and we love musicals. And how do you do musicals? Well, you have to wait until one of the bigger theaters does one, and they're usually a bigger show. And which is fantastic. By no means was Dogged Utopia going to come in here and say, yeah, we're going to start doing Oklahoma and we're going to do all, we're just not going to do those things. But there's all these gaps in between of like, well, why can't we do other stuff? And so as we work with the bigger theaters and they do their shows, well, let's do smaller musicals. Let's do the ones that have never been done, the ones that have rarely been done, smaller, more compact casts, smaller venues, more intimate, also really kind of relying on the actors to do a lot of the preparation so that we not only give actors more opportunities to perform, which is what we all love, but it also allows us to kind of be a nice complement for the theater community, where you can go see one show here and then there's another show that pops up with us, and then you go back to the bigger theaters. And so it was really about how do we showcase shows, plays, musicals that just are never done, will never be picked up by these bigger theaters because they're not going to make the money, they're not going to be the big names that people know. So we're going to go with a different approach of, we're going to go with things you've never seen elsewhere, different ways, and we'll make them small, we'll make them intimate, and it'll allow for the audiences to see more shows, things they've never seen, and for us to do more shows and get paid a little bit to do it. So it was really, how do we complement an actor's life during the year with more things to do?
If I can just make a quick suggestion for a play, and I think it's one of the very first things I ever saw Mark in, but a very small play, and he was the only one who ever did it. Will you win that two-person play with Bradshaw Call? And the name's escaping me. You know which play I'm talking about, Mark?
Yeah, you're talking about the story of my life.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that, Eric, when he did it, but it was just, did you get to see it?
We're smiling because it's not been officially, but
Oh, I shouldn't mention it.
It's going to be done likely next year around the area with Mark and I in it. So
okay. Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm not going to give details because it hasn't been announced, but keep an eye out for it. And yes.
Because I always told Mark that was like one of my favorite shows I've ever seen, and he was just so brilliant in it. I can just see you being in that play too. So yeah, I'm sorry I spilled the bills.
No, it's fine. I didn't. It's been in talks, and basically, if it doesn't get done where we think it's going to get done, we will do it at Dogged Utopia, just because it's such a beautiful show.
And I could just see the two of you doing it, which would be perfect. But
yeah, I'm excited.
So funny. But go back to Dogged Utopia. So how long were you talking about this idea?
I started thinking about this probably about a year ago, just on my own and kind of planning for it. And then Mark and I started talking about this. I want to say late last year. Is that true? We kind of started talking.
It was probably, yeah, I would say it was late last year, because you had mentioned it a couple of times, but I just never had time in my schedule to really get together and like talk. But yeah, we finally did. So yeah, it was late last year.
Yeah, I had mentioned it a little bit while we were doing Bright Star early, the first half of the year, and then I just had to, I had to do all the business stuff of, get the website ID, get the taxing information, get set up as a corporation. I had to do all the background business stuff, and then then we were ready to go, and coming into this year.
Had you ever done anything like that before?
For theater, no. This is the first time for theater, but I've done it in my day job. I do a lot of contract work, so I've had to do that for for basically for that. So it wasn't completely new. There's been a lot of learning of some stuff, let me tell you. And thankfully Mark has like this encyclopedic knowledge of like musical theater. And so he's like, here's where, he can show me, he can find me where things are, which companies are doing what. So it's been really nice and really helpful to not have to learn everything on my own.
What this reminds me of a little bit of a Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland type thing. These two guys are getting together, and but I love it. You're just going to start putting on musicals for the area,
Yep.
and something really cool. So, Mark, talk then about the process. So, you guys get together, decide you're going to form this theatrical company. You do some of the paperwork involved. What comes next, Mark, or where does it go from there?
Well, I mean, we have to decide what we're going to do show-wise. And so we we immediately thought of, I had been wanting to do Xanadu for,
Right.
well, a very, 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 very long time. I mean, I've tried through the years to get Hart to do it and tried to get ACT to do the kids version because I've always loved the movie and the show. So Eric and I pretty much were in agreement on that. It should be our first show because we both enjoyed it. And it's just fun. It's, it's a silly show. It's cheesy. It's laughing. It's roller skating. It's, so that was like the first thing we did was like, let's do this show.
Well, I was going to ask you, I'm not familiar with it, but that's not a real small musical, though, is it? Or how many people in it?
9.
9.
There's 9 people in it.
So that's pretty ambitious. Especially BB Theater is not what you call a real big theater, So you're going to have 9 people.
It's a good sized theater. You don't realize how big it is. I mean, it is small, but I think it's a perfect space for both of the shows that we've picked for this season and the ones we're talking about for upcoming stuff. But like for Xanadu, I think Xanadu works well in an intimate environment because it just gives you free reign to just have fun and be that close to the audience and be able to laugh together. And we're going to roller skate. We're going to there's going to be all kinds of things going on in that small space, but it's not as small as you think it is.
I was going to ask you
it's
this.
pretty good size.
All 9 people will be roller skating?
Yes.
Okay, so when you auditioned or when you got people in the cast, that was one of the criteria, they had to be able to roller skate?
It was actually, and with this being our first show, we decided to not really do the auditions. We just kind of went around and talked to people that we knew, because I mean, we're both involved in the theater, so we know a lot of people. So I just kind of started reaching out to people that I thought would be a nice addition to the cast. And so it's kind of like you said, it's like Judy and Mickey, we're doing a show in our barn and all the friends are coming together and we're going to put it on. And so we went and just kind of, for the first couple of shows we're doing, we decided just to ask actor friends to be a part of it as opposed to have auditions. But auditions will come in the future, but just to start off with, we wanted to make sure that we, picked people that we knew were going to be able to do the rehearsals and do the work on the side without having to come to a lot of rehearsals. And we've got a great cast lined up for Xanadu. So
now, are you directing this one?
I am. I'm actually directing it, but I'm also going to be in it because I love Xanadu, and I was like, we can't do the show, and I got to be in it too.
Absolutely. And
so because
yes,
it's like
yes and yes.
So is Eric?
It may be the only time in a long time we get to do it, so it's like I'm going to be in it.
Is Eric in it also? Are you in it, Eric?
Yes,
I am as well. Yes.
Oh, okay. So same thing too. So had you roller skated before, or you knew how to do it?
I have when I was younger, as a kid, and then I've done a little rollerblade. So I'm let me tell you, I'm practicing as part of my preparation. My character roller skates throughout, I would say 3/4 of the show. So it's not, it's a lot. There's one character who roller skates the entire show, our leading lady, and so yeah, we're working on it.
And you have to be able to sing at the same time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Very ambitious.
I haven't roller skated for about probably 30 years ago, so we'll see. But most of us most of us bought roller skates for the show because I'd always wanted a pair. So I thought this is the perfect opportunity to buy a pair of roller skates. And I think we're going to have a skate day coming up where we just go to a skate park all together and just roller skate around and, figure it out before we actually go to into the show. Most of us don't skate until the very end of the show, but.
And since you mentioned Mark, and you got my curiosity here, you mentioned leading lady. Are you free to share the cast or some of the cast who's going to be in this?
Sure. Well, I mean, our leading lady is a new actress to the area. She is from Mars Hill College, and we had auditions at Hart for the season, and I cast this young actress in the Great American Trailer Park Musical, which will be coming up in the fall or late summer, early fall. And when I saw her, I messaged Eric and I was like, I think she would be perfect for the lead role in our show. So let me see if she's available. So we cast her. Her name is Ivy Brooks.
Okay, by the way, just an aside, I've seen her.
She's a theater person.
I've seen her at Mars Hill.
At SART.
She's terrific.
Yeah. So she does theater out there, and then we have Alexa Edelman, Rachel and Nathan Dibbins, Jillian Adams, Ariel Casal. I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a blank. Oh, Adam Kelly. Yeah, who else have we got? I'm trying to think of. Am I drawing a blank on? That might be the whole cast.
That's most of it.
Did I say everybody?
Let's see.
Ariel, Jillian, Alexa, Rachel, Nathan, Adam, Ivy. Yeah, that's it. That's 9 people. You and me. That's 9 people.
Now let me ask you, Mark, for the benefit of people, I think should realize this, that to put on a show, that's why I love seeing shows and sporting shows. It's a lot of work, and it's going to be. By the way, how long is the run going to be?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
So for what, 6, 8 performances? How many performances will it
be?
8.
Yeah.
So for 8 performances, how much work does that involve in putting on a show of 8 performances?
Well, I just sent the schedule out today, so it's about 5 weeks of rehearsal. 6 weeks, I think, with tech. So, and it's like usually 4 rehearsals a week.
Okay, so people put a lot of time.
So that's about, yeah.
They put a lot of time into it.
Oh yeah,
and
that was exciting. The expectation, and it was part of it was, as we talked about the other opportunities to perform, to be able to fit one in between other musicals, we had to have it be a more condensed schedule. But it also allows for the actors to do more shows in a year, which is what we love. I love doing more characters. And so if I could fit another one in between some bigger shows that may have a longer rehearsal period, that works. So yeah, we definitely are relying on our actors and paying them to come prepared to practice roller skating, learn your lines, learn your music. We definitely will do some of that, but come prepared as you learn it, go home and make sure it's solidified. Definitely trying to do that because as Mark said, we have a more condensed rehearsal period.
And for the benefit of people who don't know the show, which is yours truly, Mark, if I can ask you to give kind of like a Reader's Digest summary of it and keep it under an hour. The story,
okay.
It'll be tough.
You don't want to hear the entire synopsis. So Xanadu is a musical based on the film called Xanadu, which came out in 1980, and the film had Olivia Newton-John and that wasn't Gene Kelly. I was like, it wasn't Fred Astaire, it was Gene Kelly, and a bunch of other people that really weren't very famous at the time, but a lot of it was not a very big hit movie. It's kind of a cult classic now. A lot of the songs that came from it were very famous, like Xanadu, Magic, Suddenly, I'm Alive. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff that came from it. So when they wrote the musical, they kind of played on the fact that the musical was very cheesy. And a lot of the movie was very cheesy, and there's some parts that really just don't make that much sense. But it's about an artist living in California who has an idea for a roller disco event space where he could have concerts and roller skating and all kinds of things. And this muse, Greek goddess Muse, comes down and is there to help him. That was Olivia Newton-John in the film. Her name is Kira, and she kind of comes, and there's like stipulations with muses is that they can't create, they can only inspire, and they cannot fall in love with a mortal. Well, her other sisters are angry that she gets all this like praise from Zeus, so they set out to sabotage things, and the other muses kind of are there to tell the story. So it's basically the same thing, and all the music is a mixture of songs from the movie, but also songs from Olivia Newton-John's catalog of songs that she had. And the musical is just almost like a spoof of the film. It does it very tongue in cheek, so they kind of make fun of the movie, but it's all done in a very fun way. Very colorful, very 80s rock and roll. Yeah, and roller disco. I mean, come on.
When you saw the film, did you say to yourself, I mean, it was a long time ago, but that this was just a really cool thing and that maybe it wasn't a show at the time, but did that really strike a chord in you when you saw the film?
It did. And actually, Alexa Edelman, who's in the show with me, her and I have actually, we bonded over many things, but our love of Xanadu was something we bonded over. So I'm happy that she's in the show. She was one of the first people I asked. But she's come over a couple of times in the last few years, and we've watched the movie just on our own, just for the fun of it. I'm actually wearing my movie shirt. So because and Alexa has one as well, because I've always enjoyed the movie, even though it was a silly little, not a very good movie, but it's a cult classic and a lot of people do enjoy it. So, but the musical was much more successful when it came out on Broadway.
Now, let me ask you this, Eric. In terms of before you're going to be in a show, people have different reactions. But is this something like, do you typically want to see a film beforehand or see it after or during? Like, when was the last time you saw this film?
Oh, it's been a while. I mean, I don't even know. To be honest, I love the music in this show. there's some specific songs that I don't get to sing that I particularly love, and it's really just, honestly, like most musicals, I hear the music and I kind of become obsessed with the songs, which makes me become obsessed with the musical. And so a lot of times I won't look at the movie if I don't want to. If I don't think it's helpful, I won't watch the movie. I happen to have seen this movie, but like in other shows, I may or may not watch it if I don't think it's helpful to my character or to understanding the plot or something. So, but I will say there's a very large Xanadu fan club out there in the world. Very large, very very loyal. They love Olivia Newton-John. They love this movie, and we have been marketing and advertising in those areas, and great response. Like I wish they were a little closer, most of them, but they just are. They love the idea that we're doing the musical because it's so rarely done anywhere.
And I have to compliment both of you. That's kind of the exciting thing about this, because again, I've never seen it. I don't even know if I ever saw the movie. So it's kind of exciting when you see something you haven't seen before or other people haven't seen before. And I really give you guys a lot of credit too for taking on the heavy dramatic things, like this. This is really a very heavy role. But we laugh, Mark, but it reminds me, I think the last thing I saw Eric in, and that was certainly not a light musical. What was it? At Heart, you did the
Oh, that was Assassins?
Yeah, Assassins. And that was not a light musical, but that was quite something. I think, Mark, you told me this story too, though, that everybody sort of loved it. I think with the exception of one person, you told me somebody walked out, they were upset in seeing the show.
Oh, well, I mean, there were a couple of people that they as they were leaving, they had some choice words to Candace about our choice of shows. There were also some emails about our choice of shows. But theater is there to open up dialogue, and you're not going to like everything, and theaters cannot do shows to please everyone. Theater is there to entertain, to enlighten, to open up dialogue about situations, and there are some heavy shows out there, and a theater can't just avoid it because they're afraid they're going to offend some person, one person or two people. There, you know, that's what other shows are for. I mean, like, if you don't like Assassins, then come see Matilda. If you don't like Matilda, then go see, you know, Shakespeare. There's just something for everyone. And, you know, who knows? There might be somebody that's offended by Xanadu. I don't know. You know, it's.
But you were the one I think who told me, though, I think it was your line, that Assassins, and somebody was walking out and you wondered, I think you put it in Facebook, you know, what were they expecting, a comedy? You know, about.
Well, that was the thing. People don't do research.
Right.
They don't. I mean, I get it. You come to theater and, you know, you go to a movie, you know, you've usually seen a trailer but like when people come to shows, like there are certain things that are given to them in posters or in advertisements or in whatever. And it's like, you're amazed that they're shot. Like the people that were amazed that there were guns in Assassins. And I'm thinking, first of all, there's a gun in the poster. It's called Assassins. All the advertisements talk about how it's about people who have either assassinated or attempted to assassinate a president. So what were you expecting? you know? Yeah. And like, why were you caught off guard by the fact that this was a musical about people who have killed presidents? You know? And I have a lot of people that don't even, when I say Xanadu, they're like, what is that? Because they've never heard.
That's what you've done, but you've done such a good job, I think, so far tonight on the show and just talking about it. At least we know it's going to be a musical. We know it's going to be about roller skating. You know, I don't know if there are any assassinations. Yeah, I don't think there are any assassinations.
No assassinations, no guns.
First
fun,
show.
No assassinations. There's just Greek gods, roller disco, muses.
I'm there.
And some funny lines.
Let me ask you this then. So that's show number 1, and that's when is that going to open, Mark?
July 4th.
Okay,
yep,
so it'll be in July. And Eric, you have, it's really cool, you already have your second play in line for the upcoming season. What's that play going? What's that play going to be?
I'm gonna. So I really wanted to do something around Halloween, and I brought up a couple of shows to Mark, and then Mark brought up a show to me that I had never heard of. I went and listened. I'm leading up to letting Mark do the disclosing of the name. But I went and listened to it, and I was like, oh, I'd never heard of it. But I was like, oh my gosh, music is amazing. And the clips I saw, just the way it was done, I was sold. And so I basically said, Mark, we're doing it. If I can get the rights, we're doing it for Halloween. So turning it over to Mark.
Now I have no idea what the show is, but Mark will tell us.
The show is called Nevermore, The Imaginary Life and Mysterious Death of Edgar Allan Poe. It was done in New York. I would say kind of off Broadway, but it is just a bizarre, clever piece of theater. It's 7 actors, 7 actors playing all kinds of different roles, and it is basically Edgar Allan Poe is on a steamer ship heading to New York, and on this same ship is a troupe of actors who begin to question him, and in doing so, they basically reenact his life. They bring out things out of their trunks and out of their suitcases, and they basically tell his life story all in this one night on this ship to New York. And it's dark, and it's very perfect for Halloween. It has a feel of like a Tim Burton, Nightmare Before Christmas type show. It's just and it gives creativity. There's room for, puppetry and all kinds of cool lighting effects. And yeah, we're looking forward to putting that on. I've been wanting to do that one for a very long time as well.
Is there any truth to the story? Had there ever been such a trip with Edgar Allan Poe?
What was the question?
Was there ever, you mentioned he was on a ship with other people. Had there ever been a ship?
Oh, no, I don't think this is no.
Oh.
I just think that's just the what they're using to tell his story. Now, what they tell is truth and based on the fact, but how they do it is just, just the theatrical technique that they use to tell his story, because all the characters play different roles and they narrate to the audience. And yeah, and Edgar Allan Poe is there as a witness to this whole, recreation of his life, which was very interesting.
Yeah,
And so,
it's fascinating to hear about what inspired him, the things in his past, the way he was raised, the things that inspired him to write the things he wrote. And so it's remarkable, and I
and so
think people will love it.
you're going to be directing that one, right then?
I'm directing it,
Oh,
yes.
Mark's directing that one as
I'm
well.
directing it.
Well,
Mhm.
let me even ask you about the directing thing. Is that tough for you as a director? I don't know how often you do it, to be both a director and in a play. You mentioned that the Xanadu one.
It depends. In Xanadu, my role is not as big as everybody else's, so there are lots of I'm not in as many scenes, so it's definitely, you know, I'm sure I will have help from, other people that will watch what I do and give notes. But like I said, in Xanadu, I play a person who is like, the character goes, I own the location that is going to become the roller disco. And I was someone who, my character was someone who the muse came to many years ago. And so, like I said, I'm not in as many scenes in Xanadu, so it's easier for me to direct it because I can, everything else I'm not in, I'm able to direct. But with Nevermore, I thought about wanting to be in it, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to direct it. Because I do have, while we're setting that one up, I do have a couple of shows that kind of bookend it that will,
In your spare
I have
time.
to squeeze in rehearsals.
Yeah. So,
I have to squeeze in rehearsals for Nevermore, and I figured it would be easier to direct it than it would be to try to memorize lines while I'm directing, coming off of directing one show and starting directing another show. So I didn't want to have like, I'll have kind of two shows going at the same time for a brief moment. And as a director, that's easier than as an actor. So,
and let me ask you this, both this, just a couple of final questions here. In terms of moving forward, if folks want to get involved in both seeing the shows, but also if you're looking for volunteers or help with some of the stuff you do, are you looking for a community to get involved in this?
Absolutely. I mean, we love people coming in. We've had, when we did our first announcements, people came in and offered to help us, pass out, collect tickets, or people have even, other actors have even sent in demos for us. And so, yeah, absolutely. You can go to doggedutopia.com, our website, and there's a place to send in information there. There's a communication place on that website, or you could go to doggedutopia@gmail.com, and you can send an email directly to us, and we'll get back to you. If you want to get involved, if you want to know more about the shows we're doing, what we're thinking about for next year, or if you want to get involved as an actor, director, stage manager, by all means, we definitely want to hear from you.
And assume if somebody wants to get involved to donate to the organization, you would accept donations?
Absolutely. We would love that. And yes, definitely. Thank you, Blaine. That would really go to support, paying everyone, because that's really important. I want to make sure I give as much as I can to all the actors, stage managers, lighting. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to this, and part of it is we want to be able to provide the experience to our audiences, these new shows, these older shows that have never been done, but also, be able to help out our local community by, giving them more money to be able to sustain themselves. Very important to me.
As these shows are getting underway, if I can just ask, Eric, beyond these shows, are you involved in anything else from a theatrical standpoint over the next couple of months that you can
I
share?
am. I'm doing immediately after Xanadu. I'm going to do Ordinary Days at Parkway. That's a 4-person musical, really very pretty. So I go right into that, and then I have a little bit of a break before we start Nevermore. So then I can go be an audience member to watch Trailer Park at Heart with Mark.
And Mark, same question I'll ask you. So beyond these couple of shows we've talked about, what's the best way to, what else are you going to be doing over the next couple of months?
So the day after Xanadu closes, we start rehearsals for the Great American Trailer Park Musical, which will be at Hart. Opens August 30th and runs for 4 weekends, or 3 weekends. I forget it, but yeah, it opens August 30th. And then so once that show opens, then I will go to the Land of Oz for 3 weekends in September to play the Wizard and Professor Marvel again. So that's pretty much my weekends in September. But while that's going on, I'll be rehearsing on the weekdays, Nevermore. And then there's some things up in the air. I'm not sure exactly what happens after that. There's some discussions being made right now for the rest of my year, and the beginning of the new year. So I mean, my calendar, which is full of things that I can't discuss completely yet, but things are lining up all the way up till next summer. So, or even next fall. So 2025. So yeah, I don't stay dormant very long. I mean, my calendar gets filled up. And now that we have Dog and Utopia, with Heart and ACT and Dog and Utopia and things like, and Land of Oz, my year gets filled up very quickly. And I love that. I'm very happy to be doing it. So
I'm just surprised I don't see behind you though a calendar with all the stuff you're in. I just see it.
no, it's on my phone.
Okay. Let's not lose the phone. Anyway, I want to thank you guys very much because you got me really excited about this new theatrical company, which is really great, especially given the fact that, some other theaters are closing. So thank you for, having the guts to try something new. And so I really look forward to the upcoming shows. And I said, hopefully I'll see you in the near future at all the stuff you're doing. And thanks again for joining me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Blaine.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
And I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti, and we'll see you hopefully in person in the theater. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.